welcome to another Dead by Daylight video. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive on the Hillbilly, the third killer in the roster to come out. He came out with the release of the game, and yeah, let's jump right into it. Okay, so the Hillbilly is a basic killer, just like the rest. He moves at 4.6 meters a second or 115% speed. He has a terror radius of 32 meters and he has a height of tall. So overall, he's just like the rest of he's just like the last two, just like Wraith, just like Trapper. Tall, 32 meter terror radius, 115% movement speed. His unique power is a chainsaw, which he can use to run around the map at incredibly quick speeds, at 10.12 meters a second, but we'll just say 10 for, you know, ease, and it's a much easier number to remember. It also will insta-down survivors, so it will take survivors from healthy straight to downed instead of having to go to healthy, to injured, and then to down. He also has a little mode called Overdrive, which, when he uses a chainsaw for a certain amount of time, he gets it for about 20 seconds, and it makes his chainsaw blue. And you'll hear a noise, it will be a map-wide noise like both the killer and the survivors hear. And then he moves at 13 meters a second. But he is getting changed very soon, so instead of moving at 13 meters a second, he moves at 11.5. So still quite a bit quicker than what he is when he doesn't have his overdrive mode on, but not as quick as what it is right now. So whenever the Hillbilly like hits an object, not a survivor, but like a wall or like most things basically, he'll slam into the wall and he'll go into a fatigue where he moves really slowly and he can't attack and he can't reuse his chainsaw for about 2.7 seconds. Well, no, it is 2.7 seconds, and that basically makes it so if you miss with your power, you get punished for it. Now he is an extremely simple killer in concept. Obviously, he's just hold the power down, sprint forward, and then just chase like a regular killer. Or you can use your chainsaw to insta-down them, which takes a little bit more finesse, it takes a little bit more skill, but it pays off a lot more. So yeah, just like the other two, it's very simple, there isn't too much to say here. And let's move on to the common strategies that Hillbilly players can implement into their games. Okay, so the Hillbilly has quite unique strategies. His strategies are less like Wraith and Trapper, where you implement specific things that would typically make sense. Like Trapper, you have setting up traps early, letting generators pop, but then, you know, you snowball your way into the game. Wraith, he's stealthy, he goes semi-invisible, so he can move around and get hits on survivors when they don't expect it. Hillbilly is quite different because he's a very loud killer. He's a very loud killer, but he's also a very quick killer. So while the quickness can make you think, okay, he could be stealthy, bear in mind that he does have a chainsaw, so stealth isn't really a main player in the Hillbilly's kit, although he does have add-ons to exemplify that playstyle a bit. Mostly the strategies to Hillbilly is basically just getting good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not very good with Hillbilly, so I'm not an expert on this by any means, but you can learn special things like curving, which is basically where at the beginning of your chainsaw you can turn normally, but obviously you're moving very, very quickly. So for the first second or two, you can curve round places survivors could be running you around very easy, which allows you to pull off some nice tricks where you can make the survivor think you're going one way, but then you actually spin around and curve around the loop, and because you move so quickly the survivor cannot react in time and gets hit by your chainsaw. But after them seconds are up, you do have limited movement, you do have limited turning capabilities. I think it's like 40 or 30%. So that's the only strategy the only strategy in heavy quotation marks that I know of, but it does take quite a lot of skill to master. There's also the sort of mini strategies where it isn't really a strategy but it's nice little tricks where, for example, you might have seen in the gameplay in the background, I was against a certain car. I did it quite a few times so I'd catch it in the video and maybe I'm speaking over it now. You'd fling yourself onto the car, and instead of bumping and going into that fatigue where you move slowly and can't do anything, you instead just slide off of the car, and that's the main thing I know that happens on. I don't think you can do it on anywhere else, but you can slide off of that car specifically, and that can really fool some survivors, especially some inexperienced ones. Some experienced ones, they know about it, they will know about it, and they will know to play around it. They will know, well, the killer can slide off of this car, so I need to bear that in mind while I chase him around here. But less experienced survivors will not realise that, and they will definitely get caught off guard because they'll think, yeah, I'll be safe because it's quite a long car, so there's not much that the killer could do, which would make sense to newer survivors. But because that car has a weird hitbox, you can just slide right off it. I'm pretty sure I got a down doing that in the gameplay as well. I slid off the car and that ended up into me getting a down. So you can do some really neat things with Hillbilly, and it is really impressive what some Hillbillies can do. It is extremely impressive, some things they pull off, and I can't help but wonder how they do that. How do they even... I just can't comprehend it. I play a lot more simple killers. I'm not afraid to admit that. Yeah, it's insane. Playstyles, however, again, playstyles, maybe not the best word I could have used there, but I've used it for 3 videos, I might as well continue. Playstyles is sort of, he can get into the game quick, and when he really gets into the game, he really gets into the game. Like, if you can get a hook quick, you can get a down even quicker, then he's like Wraith on steroids. Like, he can just go and go and go and go. You know how Wraith and Trapper, I guess, how they can sort of snowball into the game. They always have a chance, with Wraith getting that one sneaky down on a survivor, or Trapper getting that one sneaky trap on a survivor. You can always propel them into the game. The Hillbilly's margin for that is much bigger, but it's also more based on his skill and not the survivor's lack of awareness or the survivor's lack of information. So he is overall, he's a very fun killer. I personally think he's the second best killer in the entire game right now. and he can pull off some crazy things, but he also just has a nice power which you can just use to get across the map really quickly. And that's it with the strategies and the playstyles. Okay, so back into Dead by Daylight now. We're going to be going over the perk builds and some good add-ons that the Hillbilly has. So first we're going over this basic, simple and easy chase build. We're going to be using a lethal pursuer to see all the survivors' auras at the beginning of the game and increase aura readings by 2 seconds, which doesn't really matter in this build because there are no other aura reading perks, but it's just a nice little thing to have. We're using deadlock, so when a generator is finished, the entity blocks the generator, puts the next generator at the most progress for 25 seconds at tier 3. Really good slowdown perk, and you know which generator it is because its aura is shown in white when it's blocked. Enduring, which is one of the Hillbilly's perks, to reduce pallet stun duration by 50%. So basically no time at all when it's stunned for. And then Spirit Fury, where when you break 2 pallets, which you can do with your chainsaw, the next time you're stunned by it, it instantly breaks. It breaks on your head. And then mixed with Enduring, you can get very quick downs if the person is injured, because you get basically no stun and the pallet's gone. And then 2 really good add-ons that they're both getting a nerf, but they're good add-ons and it will still be good add-ons, are the turn rate add-ons, which basically makes it so you can turn easier while you're in your chainsaw, which means you can curve around loops and just move around the map easier. Dad's boost currently is 30%, but it's going to go down to 20%, and the spike boots is 45%, but that's going to go down to 30%. And a good map is auto hitting wreckers because it isn't too much of an enclosed map, and the loops are mostly straight, which means you can curve around them a lot easier. Another build is this basic one, where you're popular as the Weasel, where when you hook a survivor, the next generator that you manually kick loses 20% of its current progress, and that lasts for 40 seconds after a hook. You're going to be using Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, where 4 random hooks are changed to Scourge Hooks, and whenever you hook a unique survivor on one of those hooks, the generator with the most progress loses 20% and begins to regress. And then it takes a token off for each survivor. And then Barbecue and Chili, where after you hook a survivor, every other survivor outside of 40 meters of you has their aura revealed for 5 seconds. Really good on Hillbilly because you can cover that distance very, very quickly. And then Bamboozle, which at tier 3 makes your hold speed 15% quicker, and it blocks any window you vault for 16 seconds, but you can only block 1 window at a time with this perk. And then 2 really good add-ons are Low Bro Chains, where when you break a pallet or a breakable wall, you would usually stop the chainsaw sprint right there, but with this one you can just carry on going through. But when you hit a survivor within 5 seconds of doing that, they only take 1 health state, so they'll only go from healthy to injured, and it's getting changed. So whenever you hit an injured survivor, instead it will put them into deep wound instead of it downing them. And then Iridescent Engravings, which makes your chainsaw sprint quicker by a massive 20%. So without overdrive, that's an extra 20% of, let's say, 10. So you move 12 meters a second instead of 10. And then at overdrive, let's say it's 11.5, which they're changing it to be, you then move at, I think it's something like 14 meters, so it's crazy good. But it increases the time when you need to charge the chainsaw by 12%, which still is still makes it a pretty good add-on. And a good map is the Colding Farm, because it's very open, very full of corn. Not a lot of objects in the way. But the objects that are in the way, you're probably not going to be able to see that well. So you might bump into stuff every now and again. And then this basic build, which uses basic perks that you can unlock without a perk, that you can unlock without a unique killer or this actually belongs to the Hillbilly. And you're using Enduring, which again, it reduces the power exchange duration by 50%. Tinkerer, where when a generator reaches 70%, it makes a big bubble, like a survivor missed a skill check, and you get undetectable, which means you lose your red stain and your terror radius for 16 seconds. But this effect, it can only apply to once per generator. So once a generator has had Tinkerer used on it, it cannot be used again. And using Whispers, which means the perk is usually dark, but when it activates, it lights up, and that shows you that there's a survivor within a 32 meter range of you, which is in your terror radius. And then Hex, no one escapes death, which makes it so at the end of the game, you move 3% quicker, and all survivors become exposed, which basically means you can one hit down just in general, and you don't need to use your power. But it's tied to a Hex perk, which lights up when all the generators are completed. And then that Hex perk's aura is slowly increased from 4 to 24 meters over 30 seconds. And then one good add-on, but it takes pretty decent skill to use, it increases the charge speed of the chainsaw by 20%, which means it takes 20% less time to actually go into the sprint, but it reduces your speed to 4.4 or 110% speed instead of being 4.6 or 115. So it's a really good add-on, but it does have a pretty big drawback. And then you have the low kickback chains, which is also like the steel toe boots, where when you hit an object, you take 15% less time to recover from hitting the object, which is just nice to have for, if you're new and you're learning, you get less punished for hitting an object. And also two add-ons that I would notably stay away from is the Cracked Primable, which makes it so your chainsaw never insta-downs, but your overdrive is charged 15% quicker, just not worth using. 15% is nothing, considering you can't insta-down. It's a massive part of its power. And the counterweight, which makes it so you can't curve. Your entire part of initially how you can curve very, very quickly around stuff, completely removes that. So basically two add-ons that nerf you, not really wanted. Midwich Elementary School isn't that bad of a map because it's very long corridors, so you can maneuver around them pretty easily. So yeah, that has been the deep dive into the Hillbilly. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you got the information you were looking for, and I hope you have